Snow drifted past the towering windows of the Plaza Hotel, blurring the Manhattan skyline into a silver haze. Inside Suite 1903, Preston Clark loosened his tie, laughing too loudly at a joke Sloane Barrett whispered against his ear. Champagne bottles littered the marble table, glittering under the warm golden light. It was nearly 2 a.m., but neither of them cared. They had crossed the line hours ago, and the guilt he should have felt never came. Instead, he basked in the thrill, the danger, the idea that he was untouchable. Sloane curled her fingers around her phone. "She'll find out eventually," she murmured. Preston smirked. "Madison is too soft. She won't leave. She needs me." Those words were the final push Sloane needed. She lifted her phone, snapped a picture of Preston shirtless beside her, his wedding ring still on his finger, then typed out a message with a cruel calmness. "Thought you should know where your husband spends his nights?" She hit send before he even realized what she was doing. Across the city, Madison Clark lay awake in their Upper East Side penthouse, one hand on her 7-month belly. The baby shifted gently, as if sensing her unrest. When her phone buzzed, she reached for it, expecting a message from Preston saying he was working late again. The image that filled her screen stole the air from her lungs. Her heart pounded, her vision blurred, the room tilted. She pressed a trembling hand against her abdomen as another contraction tightened her stomach too early, too dangerous. All she could hear was her pulse roaring in her ears as the truth, sharp as broken glass, sliced through everything she believed about her marriage. Then came the second message. "He chose me. You should rest. Stress isn't good for the baby." Madison felt her knees give way. She grabbed the edge of the counter to keep herself upright, breath shallow and panicked. Snow slammed against the windows as if the night itself warned her that life as she knew it had ended. And then keys jingled at the front door. She wasn't supposed to be there when he came home, but now it was too late. Madison froze as the keys scraped against the lock. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The image of Preston with Sloane burned behind her eyes, a cruel brand she would never forget. Another contraction, twisted through her abdomen, sharp, sudden, terrifyingly early. She gripped the edge of the kitchen island until her knuckles blanched white. The penthouse, usually warm, felt like a cavern of ice. Every clock tick echoed through the room as her world collapsed in slow motion. The door swung open. Preston stepped inside, brushing snow from his shoulders like a man returning from a normal workday. His eyes were glossy from alcohol, his grin lazy. "You're still up?" he said, voice smooth, practiced like he could charm his way around the truth. Madison couldn't speak. Her throat was thick with shock and betrayal. She held her phone to her chest, the image still glowing against her palm like a wound. He tossed his coat onto the couch. "You look pale. What's wrong now?" "Now?" That word sliced her deeper than the photo. Preston finally noticed the tremor in her hands. "Madison, what's going on?" She swallowed hard. "Where were you?" He blinked. "I told you. Dinner with investors. You know how it is." Her breath quivered. "Do I?" His jaw tightened, irritation flickering in his eyes, a man annoyed that his lie wasn't accepted fast enough. "Madison, you need to calm down," he said, stepping closer. "Stress isn't good for the baby." He had no idea those exact words had just come from another woman's phone. Another contraction hit stronger this time. She gasped and steadied herself, but Preston mistook it for drama. "See?" he scoffed. "This is exactly what happens when you let your emotions run wild." Her heart cracked wider. She had defended this man for years. She had believed in him. She had prayed he would change. But tonight stripped away every illusion. She lifted her phone with trembling fingers and turned the screen toward him. The moment he saw the photo, all color drained from his face. "Madison, wait, this isn't a lie?" Her voice broke. "Another meeting? Another excuse?" He reached for her, but she stepped back as if his touch would poison her. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. "Where you left it," she said, with her. For the first time, Preston had no script, no rehearsed lines, no charm to hide behind. His mouth opened, closed, faltered. Madison felt another contraction slice through her, sharper than the last. Panic tightened her chest. She needed to get out before stress hurt the baby, before his lies crushed what little strength she had left. She reached for her coat. Preston stepped into her path. "Madison, you're not going anywhere." But she was, whether he allowed it or not. And what waited outside that door would change everything. Madison's pulse thundered in her ears as she stared at the man blocking her path. Snow continued tapping against the windows, a cold reminder that the world outside was waiting dark, merciless, but free. Anywhere was better than standing in front of the husband who had just destroyed her heart. "Move," she whispered. Preston lifted his chin. "You're overreacting." That word again, as if her pain were an inconvenience, as if her reality could be dismissed with the flick of his tongue. He took a step toward her. "Let's talk about this in the morning. You're emotional right now. You always get like this." Her breath shook. "I'm pregnant, Preston. You think that makes me unreasonable?" He shrugged, mask slipping back into arrogance. "I think you're overwhelmed. And honestly, I don't have the energy to deal with another one of your episodes tonight." Episode. The contraction that followed that word nearly dropped her to her knees. She gripped the back of a chair, forcing herself upright. Preston hesitated, briefly concerned, until he realized it might require him to act like a husband. He stepped back. "Fine. If you're going to make this dramatic, I'm going to bed. We'll talk when you're calmer." He turned toward the hallway. That was the moment something inside her broke free. The version of Madison who forgave too much, who apologized when she wasn't wrong, who waited up for a man who didn't come home, that woman snapped the final thread binding her to him. She grabbed her coat and slipped her phone into her pocket. Every movement was shaky, unsteady, but driven by a primal need to protect herself and her baby. Quietly, painfully, she opened the door. A blast of icy wind met her, stealing her breath. Her city, so bright, so loud, so unforgiving, spread out below like a maze she had to survive. Snow clung to her hair as she stepped into the hallway, her heartbeat echoing off the marble walls. She didn't know where she would go. She had no wallet, no savings she could access, no family to call. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She could not stay here. Behind her, she heard Preston's footsteps suddenly stop. "Madison?" he called, irritation turning to suspicion. "Where'd you go?" She didn't answer. She reached the elevator, pressing the button with trembling fingers. The doors slid open slowly, too slowly. Panic crept up her throat. His footsteps grew closer, faster. She stepped inside the elevator, holding her breath as the doors began to close. "Madison, don't you dare walk out on me." His hand shot toward the narrowing gap. But just before his fingers touched the door, something or someone stopped him cold. The elevator doors slid shut just in time. Preston's hand stopped inches from the metal as the doors sealed, trapping Madison inside the cold, humming box. Her breath hitched with relief, then pain, another contraction tightening low and sharp. She braced herself against the wall, whispering, "Not now, please, not now." The elevator descended slowly, each floor number blinking like a warning. When the doors opened into the lobby, the sudden brightness stung her eyes. The doorman, Henry, looked up, startled. "Mrs. Clark, are you all right? You look—" "I just need air," she said, brushing past him before the concern in his voice pushed her into tears. Outside, Manhattan hit her all at once. Wind, snow, honking cabs, the icy burn of winter slicing through her thin coat. She gasped as another contraction rolled through her. Too soon. Too dangerous. She stumbled toward the building's awning, steadying herself on a railing. Her phone buzzed. She prayed it wasn't Preston. It wasn't. It was a name she hadn't seen in years. Adrienne Cole, her former classmate, her friend, her doctor, the one person she trusted without fear. Madison hesitated, then swiped to answer before another contraction forced her hand. "Adrienne?" Her voice cracked, barely audible. "Madison?" His tone sharpened instantly. "You don't sound okay. Are you home?" "No," she whispered, breath shaky. I left." A beat of silence. Not judgment, not surprise, pure concern. "Tell me where you are." "Aiton." She looked around the swirling snow, the passing taxis, the blur of lights. I'm outside my building. I had a contraction. 2, actually." Adrian didn't waste a second. "You're 7 months. You shouldn't be contracting at all. Madison, stay right there. Don't move. I'm coming." Fear surged through her. "I don't want to go back upstairs." "He's there." His voice softened. "You're not going back inside. I'm coming to get you." A cab sped past, drenching her shoes in slush. She flinched, clutching her belly. I didn't know who else to call. I'm glad you called me, he said. I'll be there in 5 minutes. If the contractions get closer together, call 911 immediately. Okay. She ended the call and exhaled shakily. She didn't know what came next. She didn't know where she would sleep tonight, or how she would survive without money, without support, without a home. But she wasn't alone anymore. She wrapped her coat tighter around her, snowflakes clinging to her eyelashes. Behind her, the building's doors burst open. Preston stormed out, scanning the street. Madison. She stumbled backward, panic rising. And just then, a pair of headlights cut through the snow, stopping right between them. The headlights sliced through the swirling snow, blinding Preston long enough for Madison to step backward toward the curb. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop, the engine humming low and controlled. The driver's door swung open, and out stepped Adrian Colecoat, dusted with snow, expression sharpened by worry. Madison, he called, voice steady despite the chaos. Relief flooded her so fast, her knees nearly buckled. Preston, however, stiffened with disbelief and anger. What the hell are you doing here? Preston barked. Adrian didn't even glance at him. His gaze went straight to Madison, her pale face, the way she held her belly, the tremor in her stance. You're having contractions, he said softly. We need to get you warm. Madison nodded, breath shaky. Preston stepped between them, jaw clenched. She's my wife, he snapped. She's coming back upstairs. This is none of your business. Adrian finally looked at him, eyes calm but unyielding. She called me. That makes it my business. It's a misunderstanding, Preston insisted. She's emotional, she's confused. She doesn't... I'm not confused, Madison said, her voice raw. I'm leaving. The street went silent, except for the distant sounds of Manhattan nightlife. Preston's face twisted in disbelief, not because she was hurt, but because she dared defy him. You can't walk out, he said, voice lowering into something colder. You have no money, no place to go. Don't be ridiculous. A fresh contraction hit, sharp and burning. Madison folded slightly, clutching her belly. Adrian moved instantly, one hand steadying her elbow. That's enough, he said. She's getting in the car. Preston lunged forward. Don't touch her. Adrian didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. If you lay a hand on her, I will call the police and report endangerment of a pregnant woman. Back away. Preston froze, not out of guilt, but calculation. The last thing he could afford was a public scandal. Madison met Preston's eyes one last time. The man she once loved. The man who betrayed her. The man she finally saw clearly. She whispered, "Goodbye, Preston." Adrian helped her into the SUV, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. She sank into the warm leather seat, trembling from adrenaline and cold. As the car pulled away, Madison watched Preston shrink in the rear window, arms crossed, fury twisting his features, snow swirling angrily around him. For the first time that night, she exhaled a breath that didn't feel like breaking. But as the SUV turned onto Park Avenue, her phone buzzed again. A new message. From an unknown number, and the moment she opened it, her blood ran cold. The SUV glided through the snow-slick streets, its heater humming softly. Madison pressed both hands against her belly, trying to steady her breathing. The contractions had slowed but hadn't stopped. Each one reminded her how close she was to danger. Adrian glanced at her from the passenger seat. We're 10 minutes from Mount Sinai. I want them to check you as soon as possible. Madison nodded weakly. Her phone buzzed again in her trembling hand. Unknown number. She hesitated before opening it. The message was short, brutal. You won't make it without him. Go home before it's too late. A second message followed instantly this time. A picture. Her hospital file. Her prenatal chart. Pages she'd seen in her doctor's office. Her blood ran cold. How? How did they get this? Adrian's eyes snapped to the screen. That's confidential. Where did this come from? I don't know, she whispered. Someone sent it just now. He took the phone gently. His expression darkened. This is serious. This isn't just Preston being manipulative. Someone accessed your medical records. The driver glanced in the mirror. Should I keep going to the hospital? Adrian nodded. Yes, absolutely. If you're staying. Snow thudded against the windshield as the streets blurred past in streaks of white. Madison leaned back, fighting the rising panic. Adrian, her voice wavered. What if someone is watching me? His tone softened. You're safe right now. No one can get to you here. But even he didn't fully believe it. She could hear it in the tightness of his breath. Madison rubbed her stomach, feeling a soft kick beneath her palm. I didn't think it could get worse than tonight, but someone having my medical files, that's not an accident. Adrian exhaled slowly. This could be someone inside the hospital, or someone connected to Preston. He paused. Madison, did he ever mention wanting full custody if something happened to you? Her heart plummeted. She remembered a conversation weeks ago, Preston casually asking who would get the baby if she couldn't handle motherhood. At the time, she had laughed it off. Now it felt like a threat. Another buzz. This time, the message read, "You're making a mistake. He's the only one who can protect your child." Adrian's jaw tightened. That's enough. When we get to the hospital, I'll talk to administration. We'll lock your file. No one gets access without my authorization. Madison swallowed, fear thick in her chest. What if Preston tries to show up? He won't, Adrian said firmly. I'll make sure of it. The SUV slowed as it turned into the hospital driveway. But before they reached the entrance, a dark figure stepped directly into their headlights, forcing the driver to slam the brakes. Snow swirled around the silhouette, and then Madison saw the familiar outline of a man she never wanted to face again. Preston was already there waiting. The SUV skidded slightly as the driver slammed the brakes. Snow swirled in the headlights, framing the dark silhouette standing dead center in the driveway. Madison's breath caught in her throat. Preston. His coat whipped in the wind, his posture rigid, his expression unreadable. He looked like a man who had lost control of everything and was determined to take it back. Adrian cursed under his breath. He must have followed us. Madison's pulse hammered. Adrian, I can't see him right now. You won't, Adrian said, already unbuckling his seatbelt. His voice was reassuring, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. Stay in the car. Before she could respond, Adrian stepped out into the snow. Preston took a step forward. Move, Adrian. Not tonight, Adrian replied. Not while she's contracting. Preston's eyes narrowed. She's my wife. And that's your excuse? Adrian shot back. She's shaking, she's in pain, and someone accessed her medical records. You think I'm letting you near her? For a moment, the world was only their voices low, sharp, cutting through the snowstorm. Madison pressed her palm against her belly, trying to calm the baby's restless movement. Preston's voice rose, losing its polished edge. She belongs with me. I can take care of her. Really? Adrian stepped closer, the snow crunching beneath his boots. You weren't there when she collapsed. You weren't there when she couldn't breathe. You weren't there for any of it. Preston flinched, not from guilt, but from the truth hitting too close. She needs stability, Adrian continued. She needs medical care, and she needs to feel safe, something you clearly can't provide. Thanks for one. Preston's hands curled into fists. Get out of my way. No. Madison's throat tightened as she watched the standoff unfold just feet from her. Her body tensed with another contraction, this one sharper, lasting longer. She pressed her forehead against the window, fighting the urge to cry out. She couldn't lose control. Not now. Finally, Adrian said quietly, if you come one step closer, I'll involve security. And trust me, Mount Sinai does not play games with pregnant patients in distress. End quote. Hospital security guards were already jogging toward them, alerted by the commotion. Preston realized it too late. A guard stepped between them. Sir, you need to back up. Preston's jaw flexed, his breath visible in the freezing air. This isn't over, he hissed, pointing at Adrian. You're interfering in my marriage. Adrian opened the passenger door. Madison, come on, we're taking you inside. She slid out of the SUV, legs weak, breath shallow. Adrian stabilized her instantly, guiding her toward the entrance. Each step felt like walking through a storm outside and inside her. Preston shouted her name behind them, but security blocked him from following. Madison didn't look back. But as the hospital doors opened and warm air rushed over her, her phone buzzed again. A new message. From the same unknown number. This time, it wasn't a threat. It was a video, and she recognized the voice speaking in it. Warm hospital air wrapped around Madison as automatic doors slid shut behind her, a stark contrast to the icy chaos outside. Adrian guided her down the brightly lit hallway, steady and focused, while she clutched her phone with trembling fingers. The notification still glowed at the top of the screen. Unknown number sent a video. Her heart hammered. She hesitated before pressing play. The video opened with shaky footage, dim lighting, a hotel room, a familiar silhouette sitting on the edge of a bed. Preston. Madison's breath caught. But it wasn't the betrayal she feared most. It was his voice, cold, calculated, nothing like the man he pretended to be in public. "She's too emotional to raise a child," Preston's voice said. "Once the baby's born, I'll make sure custody is handled." Sloane understands. She knows the plan. A female voice chimed in. Sloane. "We'll tell them she's unstable. It's not even a lie. She cries all the time." Madison's stomach twisted. Her knees weakened. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a conspiracy. Adrian noticed the blood drain from her face. "Madison, talk to me." She couldn't. The words felt lodged in her throat. She pressed play again. Preston's voice continued. "My lawyers will bury her. She won't stand a chance." Sloane giggled. A cruel sound. "Good. The sooner she's out of the penthouse, the sooner I move in." The recording ended abruptly. Madison lowered the phone, her hands shaking uncontrollably. He planned everything. He wanted custody. He wanted me gone. Adrian's expression hardened, a rare fury sharpening his features. "This isn't just immoral. This is criminal." Her throat tightened. "Who sent this? Why now?" "We'll figure it out," he said firmly. "Right now, you need to focus on you and the baby." And then Freezy. They reached the maternity triage area. A nurse rushed toward them, scanning Madison's pale face. "Is she contracting?" "Yes," Adrian answered. 7 months. High stress. She needs fetal monitoring and labs now." Madison lay back on the exam bed, tears slipping silently as the nurse attached monitors. The rhythmic heartbeat of her baby filled the room, a fast, steady whoosh, whoosh, whoosh that made Madison both relieved and shattered. Adrian stayed beside her, calm but unyielding. "You're safe here." "And that video? It's proof. Proof of manipulation, coercion, maybe even medical privacy violation. This changes everything legally." Madison swallowed hard. "Do you think someone is trying to help me? Or someone wants Preston taken down?" Adrian said quietly. "Either way, we'll use it." Just as Madison began to steady her breathing, an alarm beeped sharply on the monitor. The nurse's eyes widened. Her contractions just intensified. Another nurse hurried in. "Dr. Cole, we may need to prepare for preterm labor." Madison's heart plummeted. And outside the triage room, someone was listening through the door. Outside the triage room, the hallway looked calm, sterile white walls, humming lights, nurses rushing by with charts. But behind the closed door, the tension was suffocating. Madison's contractions were steady now, too steady for anyone's comfort. Adrian hovered at her bedside, trying to stay composed even as worry tightened around his eyes. The nurse adjusted the fetal monitor, glancing at the printout with increasing concern. "Her contractions are 4 minutes apart," the nurse said softly. "We need to notify OB immediately." Madison's breath hitched. "Is my baby in danger?" Adrian took her hand. "We're not there yet. You're responding to high stress. If we can stabilize that, we may be able to stop the labor." End quote. But Madison wasn't convinced, not when fear kept clawing up her throat, not when her body felt ready to collapse, not when betrayal still echoed in her ears. The nurse stepped out to page the OB team. Adrian lowered his voice. "Madison, focus on breathing, one contraction at a time." She nodded, failing to steady her trembling hands. Then she noticed something. The door. It wasn't fully closed. A small gap remained, barely visible, but enough for a shadow to flicker across the floor. Someone was standing there, listening. Her pulse spiked. "Adrian," she whispered, "someone's outside." He turned. The shadow shifted quickly, disappearing down the hall. Adrian stepped out, scanning the corridor, but whoever it was had vanished behind a corner. He returned with a tense expression. "No one should be anywhere near this room except medical staff." Madison swallowed. "Do you think it's Preston?" "It might be someone working for him," Adrian said. "That video you received? It changes the stakes." The nurse returned with a tablet. "Dr. Cole, the OB team is reviewing her case. They want labs, hydration, and continuous monitoring." Adrian nodded. "And security around this area?" Quietly, the nurse blinked, surprised but compliant. "Yes, doctor." As she left, Madison pressed a hand to her stomach. "I feel like I'm being hunted." "Think." Adrian sat beside her. You're not alone anymore. Whoever is doing this, they won't get near you. But even he couldn't hide the tension in his posture. Her phone buzzed again. A text. Same unknown number. This time, I see you. Madison's breath stopped. Another text followed instantly. That baby isn't safe with you. You know that, right? Her hands shook violently. Adrian, someone is watching me right now. He reached for her phone, face darkening. We're tracking this. We're locking down the entire floor. But before he could finish, the overhead intercom crackled with an announcement. Security to maternity triage. Immediate response required. Madison's eyes widened. Someone had activated a code and it was directed at her room. The overhead speaker crackled again, louder this time. Security to maternity triage. Code red. Madison's heart slammed against her ribs. Code red wasn't standard. It wasn't for medical emergencies. It meant security threat. Someone had triggered it for her floor. Adrian immediately moved toward the door, his voice low and urgent. Lock this room. Now. The nurse hesitated only a split second before rushing to slide the heavy latch. The metallic click echoed through the room like a warning shot. Madison clutched her stomach. Adrian, what does this mean? What's happening? It means someone tried to access a restricted area, he said, keeping his gaze fixed on the small window in the door. And they're too close. Her body trembled uncontrollably. Another sharp contraction tore through her abdomen, forcing her backward into the bed, teeth clenched in pain. The heartbeat monitor beeped faster. Adrian rushed to her side. Breathe with me. In, out, good. But he couldn't hide the tension coiling through him. Footsteps thundered down the hallway, shouting, a crash metal hitting the floor. Madison flinched. A nurse burst into view behind the door window, waving frantically at Adrian through the glass. Someone tried to get past the front desk. They said they were here for Madison Clark. Madison felt the blood drain from her face. Preston? Or someone worse? Adrian stepped toward the window. Is security with them? Yes, but he ran. We don't know where he went. Madison's breath turned shallow. She pressed a hand to her belly, terrified this stress would push her into preterm labor. The nurse outside continued. We're locking down all maternity entrances. No one in or out without badge clearance. As she disappeared down the hall, Adrian closed the blinds on the door window. No one sees in. No one comes in except medical staff, he said firmly. Then Madison's phone buzzed again. Her vision blurred as she lifted it. The unknown number had sent a new message. Almost there. Then a second. You can't hide behind him forever. Her heart lurched. Adrian, they know where I am. He took the phone, jaw tightening. Whoever this is, they won't reach you. But before he could say more, the lights flickered overhead once, twice before the entire hallway outside went dark. Only her room remained lit. The machines beeped steadily, unnervingly loud in the sudden silence. Adrian's head snapped toward the blackout. That shouldn't happen, he murmured. Someone killed the power to the maternity wing. Madison's breath hitched. Footsteps echoed again, slow this time. Deliberate. Approaching. They stopped right outside the door. The handle moved. Once, twice, then slowly began to turn. And Madison realized this wasn't Preston's way of walking. It was someone else. Someone she had never heard before. The metal door handle jerked again, twisting halfway before slamming back as if someone were testing its strength. Madison's breath froze in her chest. Adrian immediately stepped in front of her bed, one arm out as if shielding her from whatever stood on the other side. Stay back, he whispered. He wasn't talking to Madison. He was talking to whoever was outside. The hallway remained pitch black, except for the faint outline of a tall figure standing just feet away. The gap beneath the door glowed with emergency lighting, and a shadow moved across it, slowly, deliberately. Then came a voice. Low, male, unfamiliar. Open the door, doctor. Daughter 4. Madison's heart slammed painfully. She clutched the bedsheets. Adrian's posture tightened. Identify yourself. No answer. Instead, the handle twisted a third time harder. Open it, the voice repeated. Colder now. It's urgent. Adrian didn't move. You're not hospital staff. Back away from the door. Outside, the man exhaled in irritation. Dr. Cole, we don't want to involve your patient. Just step aside. Madison's pulse spiked. They knew Adrian's name. Her phone buzzed again with a new message. Don't trust him. Her stomach twisted. She didn't know whether the message referred to Adrian or the man outside, but either option made her tremble harder. The lights flickered inside the triage room, then steadied. Adrian leaned closer to the door. Security is on their way. Leave before. A loud bang cut him off. Someone had slammed their body against the door. Madison gasped, gripping her belly as another contraction tore through her. The fetal heart monitor quickened, responding to her panic. Adrian, she choked. He turned, his voice softening. Focus on breathing. I'm right here. But outside, the man started pacing, his shoes scraping against the linoleum. Your patient has something that doesn't belong to her, he muttered. We need it. Madison's mind raced. Something that doesn't belong to me? She whispered. What is he talking about? Adrian shook his head. You don't have anything of value besides your phone. And your medical chart. Madison froze. The video. The messages. The leaked hospital file. Was someone trying to retrieve the evidence? Adrian stepped to the intercom beside the bed and pressed the emergency button. This is Dr. Cole in Triage 3. We need full lockdown and immediate security response. There's an intruder on the floor. Static crackled. Then a voice answered, Security is dispatched. Stay inside. Also, another violent slam rattled the door. Madison cried out, Adrian, he's coming in. No, Adrian said firmly, positioning himself like a barrier. He's not getting anywhere near you. But then, the banging suddenly stopped. Silence thickened the hallway. Footsteps faded. It sounded like the intruder had retreated. But before relief could settle, a scream echoed from down the hall, a nurse's voice, sharp and terrified. Adrian's eyes widened, because whoever had come for Madison had found someone else first. The scream jolted through the maternity floor like electricity. Madison's entire body tensed, her breathing turning shallow as the fetal monitor beeped erratically beside her. Adrian moved toward the door, but stopped himself, torn between instinct and duty. Stay with her, he ordered the nurse. Do not open this door for anyone. Madison's voice trembled. Adrian, what if they hurt someone? He hesitated, jaw tightening. Security is on their way. I promise, no one is getting to you. But even as he said it, the hallway outside erupted with frantic footsteps, panicked voices, and the distant crackle of walkie-talkies. Someone shouted, He went that way. Another yelled, Block every exit. Madison felt cold all over. He wasn't here for me, not only me. Adrian returned to her side, lowering his voice. Listen to me. Whoever that man is, he wants something connected to you. The video, the medical files, the messages, they all point to one thing. Madison swallowed hard. Someone is trying to erase the proof. Before Adrian could answer, a nurse burst through the intercom speaker. Dr. Cole, the intruder attacked a staff member. She's conscious but injured. Security is pursuing him to the East Wing. Madison covered her mouth in horror. Oh my God. The nurse in the room whispered, Who would do this? For what? Adrian exchanged a grim look with her. Someone who wants access to a pregnant woman's medical records without authorization. Madison's eyes widened. Custody. He wants leverage for custody. Her mind raced through all the terrible possibilities. Preston's voice in the video saying she was too unstable. The threats about the baby not being safe. The stolen hospital files. But one question kept clawing at her. Who recorded that video? Who leaked it? And who was willing to break into a hospital to get it back? Adrian adjusted her IV, trying to calm her rising panic. Your contractions are worsening again. Madison, you need to focus on breathing. Stress will push your body closer to labor. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. I don't feel safe anywhere. Adrian sat beside her, his voice softer. You will. I'm not leaving this room. It's stand, but a loud crash echoed outside, followed by a man shouting, He got into the stairwell. Lock the maternity doors now. The nurse hurried to reinforce the latch. Another contraction hit, sharp and deep. Madison cried out, gripping the rails of the bed. Adrian leaned closer. Stay with me. You're safe. But she wasn't. Her phone buzzed on the tray table. Another message. This one wasn't a threat. It was a single photo. A sonogram. Not hers. And beneath it, she's not the only one having his baby. Madison stared at the sonogram photo, her pulse thundering in her ears. The grainy image showed a tiny curled form, another pregnancy. Another due date. Her vision swam as she read the note again. She's not the only one having his baby. Her breath cracked. Adrian, what is this? He took the phone, his expression turning rigid. This isn't your file. This is someone else's fetal ultrasound. Someone wants you to think Preston got another woman pregnant. Madison shook her head. But what if it's true? What if he— No, Adrian said sharply, then softened. We don't know anything yet. This could be real, or it could be an intimidation tactic. A nurse slipped in quietly to check the monitors, her brows tight with concern. Her contractions are tightening again. Madison pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. I can't take more of this. I can't. Don't say that, Adrian said firmly. Your body reacts to stress. We're getting ahead of it. But stress was now an ocean swallowing her whole. Her husband was cheating. Her medical records had been stolen. An intruder was stalking the maternity ward. And now another pregnancy? She felt her chest constrict, breaths shortening. Adrian lifted her chin gently. Madison, look at me. Her tear-filled eyes met his. You are not breaking, not tonight. FUS is a visitance. But she already felt broken. A knock sounded at the door, soft, hesitant. Then, a voice. Dr. Cole, it's security. We've cleared part of the floor. We need to confirm your patient's safety. Adrian didn't trust it. His eyes narrowed. Badge to the window. The guard slid an ID under the glass. Adrian checked it carefully, then unlocked the door only a few inches. Report? We found the injured nurse. The intruder went down the east stairwell. We believe he exited through a service door. If it doesn't formery, believe isn't enough, Adrian said coldly. You need to find him. We're trying, sir. The guard left. But something felt wrong. Madison whispered, Adrian, what if Preston isn't the father in that picture? Adrian froze. What do you mean? Her voice trembled. Earlier tonight, he said something to Sloane on that recording. She told him she had a plan. What if they faked a pregnancy to take my baby? Adrian inhaled sharply. You think they're trying to replace your child on paper? With another, Madison whispered. With one they control. The room fell silent. Adrian's jaw tightened. If that's true, then this is bigger than infidelity. This is custody fraud. Before he could say more, a nurse rushed in. They found something, she said breathlessly. In the locker room. You need to see it. Adrian stood. What is it? The nurse held up a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a hospital badge. Not the intruder's. It belonged to Sloane Barrett. The small evidence bag dangled between the nurse's trembling fingers, the plastic crinkling softly under the fluorescent lights. Inside, unmistakable even through the haze of fear and disbelief, was Sloane Barrett's hospital ID badge. Madison's breath caught. Sloane was here? Adrian took the bag, his jaw tightening. This badge gives access to multiple restricted areas. Someone used it tonight. End quote. But Sloane isn't staff here, Madison whispered. She has no reason to even be near this hospital. Adrian looked at her gravely. She had a reason tonight. The nurse continued. We found it in the maternity locker room. Security thinks the intruder used it to bypass the second-floor doors. Madison felt her skin crawl. So she's involved. She helped him get inside. Adrian shook his head slowly. Or she is the one who planned all of this. Dollars for us. In is 9. The room tilted for a moment. Madison wasn't sure if it was fear or another contraction causing the dizziness. The fetal heart monitor beeped, a rapid rhythm echoing the panic rising inside her. She wants my baby, Madison whispered. This proves it. Adrian placed a steady hand on hers. We don't jump to conclusions. But this, he lifted the badge, isn't a coincidence, and it's enough leverage for a legal case. Prostration, and great off too. Before Madison could respond, 2 hospital security officers appeared at the doorway. Dr. Cole, we reviewed camera footage, one said urgently. Someone used that badge 30 minutes ago to access the East Wing stairwell. But here's the issue. He hesitated. Adrian pressed. What issue? The footage shows the intruder wearing a mask. But the timestamp suggests someone else swiped the badge. Someone smaller. Faster. Madison shivered. Smaller? Like Sloane? The officer nodded grimly. We believe she escorted him inside, then handed him the badge. Madison pressed a hand to her mouth. So the man wasn't acting alone. No, Adrian said. This was coordinated. The officers exchanged a look. And there's more. Preston Clark arrived outside minutes after the intruder fled the stairwell. We're not sure if he was following the intruder or if he was part of it. Madison closed her eyes. He said he didn't know anything. He acted shocked. And that's the issue, Adrian murmured. He acted shocked. The security officer stepped closer. Dr. Cole, we need to move Miss Clark to a safer room until we determine whether the threat is gone. Madison's heart thudded. Safer room? What does that mean? Restricted access, the officer replied. Only medical personnel with clearance codes. No visitors. Adrian nodded. Prepare the transport. Madison tried to swallow, but her throat felt tight. Adrian, do you think Preston and Sloane planned this together? He met her eyes. I think they planned more than you ever knew. As the officers moved to escort them, a hospital aide sprinted down the hall, shouting, Dr. Cole, you need to come now. They found something in the parking garage. Adrian stiffened. What did they find? The aide's face drained of color. A car, engine running, and inside is someone who shouldn't be alive. Thanks for watching. Madison's breath quickened as the aide's words echoed down the hallway. A car, engine running, someone who shouldn't be alive. Her stomach twisted painfully, and the fetal monitor responded with a spike. Adrian immediately turned to the officers. Stay with her. Don't move her until I return. No, Madison whispered, gripping his wrist. Don't leave me. His expression softened, but danger pulled him away. I'll be back in minutes. You're safe here. Security is outside this door. To desk. She didn't feel safe. Not even close. Adrian jogged down the corridor, following the aide toward the parking garage. The hallway lights flickered, a reminder of the earlier power issue. Another sign tonight was far from ordinary. Madison watched him disappear. Every step he took away from her felt like another piece of stability ripped from her hands. Back in the room, the nurse adjusted the monitors again. Your contractions are steady but controlled. Breathe slowly. Iclosion. Madison tried, but her mind raced through 1,000 awful possibilities. Someone who shouldn't be alive. What did that mean? 10 agonizing minutes passed. Then 15. Then 20. Still no Adrian. Finally, the door burst open, and he hurried in face pale, eyes blazing with something between shock and fury. Adrian? Madison whispered. What did they find? He swallowed hard, as if choosing his words carefully. The car was parked in a dark corner of the garage, engine running, doors unlocked. And the person inside? She asked, barely breathing. It was a man, Adrian said quietly, unconscious, wearing hospital scrubs. Madison frowned. A nurse? No. Adrian shook his head. He wasn't staff. They checked the roster twice. Then who was he? Adrian exhaled slowly. He had bruising around his throat like someone tried to silence him. And in his pocket, he hesitated, was another hospital badge. Madison's blood chilled. Sloane's? No. Adrian's jaw tightened. This one belonged to a physician, a doctor who used to work here. Used to? He was fired for altering patient records. Madison felt tears burn her eyes. He was helping them, wasn't he? Preston and Sloane. Adrian nodded grimly. The man in the car likely forged the medical files that showed you as unstable. And when he became a liability, someone knocked him out and staged the scene. Oh my God, Madison covered her mouth. This was bigger than I thought. One stayed. It's coordinated, Adrian said. They wanted custody. They wanted control. They wanted evidence erased. Her breathing grew shallow. What if they're still coming? Adrian squeezed her hand. They won't reach you. I'll protect you. But before he could say more, an officer rushed in, breathless. Dr. Cole, we just found surveillance footage. Adrian stiffened. Of the intruder? The officer shook his head. No. This footage shows the person who let him into the hospital. It's Cruz. Madison's heart stopped. The officer turned the tablet around. The screen showed a face she knew. It wasn't Sloane. It was Preston's mother. Madison stared at the footage on the tablet, disbelief rooting her to the bed. The grainy video showed an older woman in a dark coat, her movements calculated, her posture rigid with purpose. Even in the poor lighting, Madison recognized her. Margaret Clark, Preston's mother, a woman who had never once tried to hide her disdain. No, Madison whispered, She hates hospitals. She avoids them unless absolutely necessary. Adrian exchanged a grim look with the officer. Yet she walked right in tonight. The officer nodded. She used a visitor badge. She requested access to the East Wing just minutes before the intruder appeared. Madison's stomach clenched painfully. Why would she help him? Why would she do this to me? Adrian's voice softened. Because if they get custody, the baby becomes a Clark heir. And Margaret has always cared more about lineage than human beings. Madison remembered the cutting remarks, the judgmental eyes, the way Margaret once said, "Some women just aren't built for motherhood." Another contraction hit sharp, punishing. The fetal monitor spiked again. "Relax your breathing," the nurse urged. "We need to keep your blood pressure down." Madison tried, but adrenaline flooded her veins. Does Preston know? Was he part of this? The officer cleared his throat. "We're reviewing more footage. But so far, it appears Preston arrived too late to have been with her." "Too late doesn't mean innocent," Adrian added quietly. Madison pressed her hands to her belly, shaking. His mother would do anything to keep this family pure. "If she thinks I'm unfit, she's not the one who decides that," Adrian said firmly. "And after tonight, she may be facing criminal charges." But Madison shook her head. "You don't understand. Preston listens to her. Always. She controls him. She controls everything." The nurse adjusted the IV line. "We're prepping magnesium to slow labor. Try to stay calm." Calm? While her husband, his mistress, a disgraced doctor, an intruder, and now Preston's mother were all orchestrating a plan around her unborn child? "Adrian," Madison whispered, tears spilling. "I don't know who's safe anymore." "You're safe with me," he said, the intensity in his eyes unwavering. "I won't let them near you." "But Dinatum." Suddenly, another officer appeared at the door, breathless. "We found Mrs. Clark." Madison's heart dropped. "Where?" Adrian asked. "In the cafeteria, sitting calmly at a table." "Is she detained?" Adrian pressed. The officer hesitated. "Not exactly. She asked to speak with Madison, alone." Madison's blood froze. "No," Adrian snapped. "Absolutely not." The officer swallowed. "She said Madison already knows the truth, and she wants to finish the conversation." Madison trembled, because she remembered hours earlier, Margaret had called her, and Madison hadn't dared listen to the voicemail. Madison's fingers trembled as she unlocked her phone, her breath tight and shallow. She had ignored Margaret Clark's call earlier that evening, back before the contractions, before the intruder, before the hospital locked down like a war zone. Now, the voicemail felt radioactive in her hand. Adrian stood beside her, protective tension radiating from him. "You don't have to listen to it. Not tonight." But Madison shook her head. "If she's involved, I need to know." The nurse dimmed the lights to help calm her, though nothing could calm what waited inside that voicemail. Madison pressed play. Margaret's voice filled the room, smooth, cold, dripping with disdain. "Madison, it's Margaret. I'm calling because Preston told me you were becoming difficult again. I warned him this would happen. Some women simply aren't emotionally stable enough to raise a Clark child." Adrian's jaw clenched. The voicemail continued. "I've arranged for a specialist to review your case. You won't be blindsided. And once everything is settled, the baby will be placed where it belongs with us. You should focus on recovering. Alone." Madison covered her mouth, nausea rolling through her. "She planned to take my baby." "That's not happening," Adrian said firmly. But the message wasn't finished. Margaret's tone sharpened. "And for your own sake, don't run. It makes things worse. If you leave Preston, the courts will see it as instability. You cannot win, not against our family." The voicemail ended with a soft click. Madison felt hollow, betrayed all over again. She knew everything that would happen tonight. Adrian's face hardened. Then she'll be held responsible. The door opened, and 2 security officers stepped inside. "Dr. Cole," one said. "Mrs. Clark is still in the cafeteria. She refuses to leave until she speaks to Madison." "She's not speaking to her," Adrian snapped. "The stress alone could push her into premature labor." The officer hesitated. "There's something else. We pulled more surveillance from earlier, before Madison arrived." Adrian narrowed his eyes. "And?" The officer tapped his radio nervously. Margaret wasn't alone when she entered the hospital. A chill swept up Madison's spine. "Who was with her?" The officer exhaled. "A woman, blonde, wearing a long coat. Madison's breath hitched. Sloan? That's what we thought, the officer said. But then we saw her face clearly. He turned the tablet around. The woman walking beside Margaret wasn't Sloan. She was older. Colder. Someone Madison had never met but instantly recognized from Preston's family photos. It was Preston's older sister, Charlotte Clark, returned after years of disappearing from the public eye. And she looked like she came back for one purpose. Madison stared at the tablet as the image of Charlotte Clark, tall, sharp-featured, eyes cold as winter glass, strode beside Margaret into the hospital. Preston had mentioned having an older sister once, years ago, but only briefly. She keeps to herself, he'd said. Private life. But this woman didn't look private. She looked purposeful. Calculated. Dangerous. Why would she come back now? Madison whispered. Adrian folded his arms, tension building across his shoulders. Because whatever Preston and Margaret planned, she's part of it. The officer nodded grimly. Charlotte signed into the building under an alias. She bypassed 2 security checkpoints. She knew exactly which doors to take. Madison felt her chest tighten. So it wasn't just Preston, or Sloan, or Margaret. His entire family. Not entire, Adrian cut in, but enough to try to isolate you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. A contraction tightened through her abdomen again, sharp and insistent. Madison hissed through her teeth as the monitors spiked. The nurse rushed over. Her contractions are increasing again. Stress is pushing her toward active labor. Madison grabbed the rails. I can't have the baby now. Not like this. Not with them here. Adrian leaned over, his voice firm but gentle. You're safe. They won't get near you, I swear. But the fear coiling through her felt older than reason. The officer cleared his throat. There's more. Charlotte met with the intruder earlier tonight. Cameras caught them exchanging something in the parking garage. Madison's skin went numb. What did they exchange? We're not sure yet, the officer said. But Charlotte pocketed whatever it was. Her mind raced. Evidence? Medical files? Forged documents? Or worse, proof of a plan that went far beyond custody? Adrian asked, Where is Charlotte now? The officer shifted uncomfortably. She left the cafeteria about 10 minutes ago. We don't know where she went after that. The monitor beeped faster as Madison's panic rose again. You lost her? How do you lose a woman like that in a hospital on lockdown? As if on cue, the overhead intercom crackled. All maternity staff to Action Protocol 9. Repeat, Action Protocol 9. Adrian's eyes widened. Protocol 9? That's only used when... The door burst open. Another officer rushed inside, panting. Dr. Cole, we need you. Now. Someone accessed the newborn wing using a forged badge. Madison felt the room tilt. That's not possible, she whispered. My baby isn't even born yet. The officer nodded, fear hollowing his eyes. We know. But whoever went in, he swallowed. Ask specifically for the Clark family file. Madison's scream tore from her throat. Adrian gripped her shoulders. Madison, look at me. Breathe. But she couldn't. Because the officer wasn't finished. He lifted a small object wrapped in latex gloves. We found this drop near the nursery. Madison blinked through tears as he held it up. It was her wedding ring. Madison stared at her wedding ring inside the evidence bag as if it were a fragment of a life that no longer belonged to her. Her breath trembled. She hadn't even realized it was missing. The sight of it discarded near the newborn wing sent a rippling chill through her entire body. Why would they take my ring? She whispered. Adrian studied the bag with a tightening jaw. Because they needed it to confirm identity. Hospital systems sometimes use biometric match for parental access. Madison felt sick. They tried to impersonate me. A horrifying truth clicked into place. Margaret, Charlotte, Preston, their intruder, their forged records, the stolen sonogram, the threats. This wasn't chaos. This was a coordinated attempt to replace her, erase her, and take her baby. We're running out of time, Madison said, panic rising with her pulse. They're going to try again. No, Adrian said firmly. They won't get near you or the baby. But as he said it, the fetal monitor spiked again. Her contractions were coming faster. The nurse stepped forward. We need to move her to a delivery room now. She's dilating. We may not be able to stop the labor. Madison's hands shook violently. I can't have my baby tonight, not while they're here, not with them trying to. Madison, the nurse said gently, your body may not give you a choice. Two officers entered the room, faces grim. One of them held a tablet. Dr. Cole, the taller one said, legal just briefed us. Based on the voicemail, the forged badge, the stolen medical files, and the attempted breach of the newborn wing, this is now a criminal matter. Adrian nodded. It always was. The officer continued, we need Madison to make a statement for the record. And we need her to confirm whether she wants a restraining order filed immediately against Preston and his family. Yes, Madison whispered. All of them. But the officer shook his head. Before we file it, you need to hear this. He tapped the screen. A recording began audio only, but unmistakable. Preston's voice. I don't care what it costs. Just make sure she looks unstable. Once the baby comes, it's our word against hers. Another voice responded. Charlotte's. She won't even see it coming, and if she resists well, accidents happen in hospitals every day. Madison clutched her stomach, nausea surging. Adrian's fists curled. This is attempted custody fraud and conspiracy to harm. The officer nodded. And with this recording, we can arrest them the moment they step into this building. The nurse raised Madison's bed rails. We need to move her now. And 24 it. The officers flanked the bed as they wheeled her toward the delivery wing, protecting her like she was the most fragile and most targeted person in the hospital. But as they turned the corner, an alarm blared overhead. A new hallway lockdown. The lights flashed red. A voice announced, unauthorized breach detected in the delivery wing. Madison's blood turned to ice. They weren't going after the newborn wing anymore. They were coming straight for her. The sirens blared overhead, red lights pulsing along the hallway as Madison's bed was rushed toward the delivery wing. Officers surrounded her, but fear still cut through her like ice. Every beep from the fetal monitor reminded her how fragile this moment was, how the wrong second, the wrong person, could change everything forever. Adrian ran beside the bed, gripping the rails. Stay with me, Madison. We're almost there. Her voice trembled. They're coming. I know they're coming. I have not. They won't reach you, he said, breathless but certain. I swear it. The hallway ahead suddenly illuminated with white security lights, backups kicking in after the breach. A group of armed guards sprinted past them toward the alarm source. Then a radio crackled. Suspects identified Margaret Clark and Charlotte Clark. They're attempting to access Delivery Room 4. Madison's blood froze. That was her assigned room. Two officers broke off and sprinted ahead to intercept. Adrian signaled to the nurse, switch her to room 7. Now. They veered sharply down a side corridor, bursting into a different delivery suite. The nurse locked the door behind them and drew the blinds over the window. Madison's body convulsed with a fierce contraction. Adrian, I think it's happening. He was already gloving up, voice steady. It's okay. You're safe now. Focus on breathing. End quote. Outside, shouting erupted security orders, pounding footsteps, Margaret's sharp voice echoing through the hall. You can't keep us from the baby. That child belongs to our family. Madison sobbed through the contraction. Please, don't let them touch my baby. Adrian met her gaze, steady and unwavering. I won't. Not now, not ever. A new wave of chaos broke outside, followed by a slam and angry shrieks. Security had reached them. Margaret's voice cracked into fury. You'll regret this. Preston will fix everything. But another officer shouted back. Preston Clark is already in custody. Madison's breath hitched. They arrested him? Adrian nodded. The recording was enough. He's done. Relief washed through her, but only for a second, because her body demanded her full attention. Adrian, it's time, he said gently. Push when I tell you. Minutes stretched like hours. Pain tore through her, but something stronger guided her determination, love, survival. Finally, a cry pierced the air. Her baby's cry. A sound so pure and small and miraculous that Madison collapsed into tears. The nurse wrapped the tiny newborn and placed them on Madison's chest. Warm, breathing, alive. Adrian exhaled shakily, emotion flickering across his usually calm features. You did it. Madison held her child close, trembling with overwhelming relief. We're safe. We're really safe. End quote. Later, as dawn broke over Manhattan, security confirmed Margaret and Charlotte were arrested at the scene. Sloane turned herself in when she learned Preston had confessed everything. The Clark scheme collapsed entirely. But Madison didn't care about their downfall anymore. Her future was in her arms. Adrian stood beside her, quiet and steady. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. "Not now, not ever." Madison looked up, tears shining. For the first time in a long time, she believed him. And that was the beginning of her real life. All right, my wonderful friends. So here we are. The story has finally come to a close. And if you are still here, still listening, still breathing slowly with everything Madison went through, then something in this journey touched your heart in a way you maybe didn't expect. And that matters. It really does. Because this story wasn't just about betrayal or danger. It was about awakening, about remembering, as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Madison's pain didn't break her, it revealed her strength. Her fear didn't cage her, it guided her toward people who truly cared. And that's something each of us can carry into our own lives. No matter how dark the moment feels, there is always a path forward. And often, that path begins the moment we decide we deserve better. So if right now you're facing something heavy, loss, confusion, heartbreak, please remember, you are not alone. You are not weak. And you are allowed to rebuild your life in a way that finally honors who you are. If this story moved you, vibe. Not for numbers, but so we can keep telling these stories together. Stories that remind us how strong the human heart can be, and how healing always finds those who keep walking. Thank you for staying with us. Truly.